Hello students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Professor Ipshita Bansal from BPS Women's University, Sonipat, Haryana. Today we will be discussing about the module Gandhian Thoughts Insights for Human Quality Development of the paper Indian Perspectives on Human Quality Development. By the end of this module, the students will be able to understand the important aspects of Gandhian thought and introspect how his teachings can lead to human quality development. Gandhi's unwavering trust in principles like truth, non-violence, purity of character and greatness of soul, refinement of heart and mind, self-discipline made his personality unique and lent him unmatched public appeal. He gave awakening and self-respect to hundreds of millions of people. The only force he used was soul force. His teaching of non-violence caught the attention of the whole world and particularly influenced the freedom struggle in Africa and Latin America. He purified the politics by setting standards of personal and public conduct. Einstein on Gandhi's 70th birthday said, "A leader of his people, unsupported by any outworld authority, a politician whose success rests not upon craft nor the mastery of technical devices, but simply on the convincing power of his personality, a victorious fighter who always scorned the use of force, a man of wisdom and humility, armed with resolve and inflexible consistency, who devoted all his strength to the uplifting of his people and betterment of their lot, a man who confronted the brutality of Europe with the dignity of simple human being and thus at all times rose superior." Gandhi said, "My life is my message." Going through his journey of life, we get invaluable lessons for human quality development. The crux of Gandhian philosophy lies in his 11 vows, which he followed all through his life and encouraged others also to observe. Gandhi's 11 vows. First is non-violence. Gandhi says, "Ahimsa is one of the world's greatest principles, which no power on earth can wipe out. Thousands like myself may die in trying to vindicate the ideal, but ahimsa will never die, and the gospel of ahimsa can be spread only through believers dying for the cause." Non-violence is the term which seems very impractical to adopt, but Gandhi was the man who not only adopted it but also worshipped it throughout his life. For him, non-violence had to be adopted not only in action but also in thought and speech. He says, "I hold that non-violence is not merely a personal virtue. It is also a social virtue to be cultivated like the other virtues. Surely, society is largely regulated by the expression of non-violence in its mutual dealings. What I ask for is an extension of it on a larger national and international scale." Gandhi set a great example of non-violent efforts during the freedom struggle of India. He adopted a way which seemed very ridiculous to most of the people, but his non-violent opposition of the Britishers could achieve what the violent action could not. Lord Mountbatten once described him as one-man peace army. For Gandhi, peace was not merely an outcome of a stressful struggle to be held and nurtured, but a mental orientation under the influence of which every task was to be integrated in process itself. The second vow is truth. Gandhiji says, truth is the only thing that counts. Where this is present, everything rights itself in the end. This is a law to which there is no exception. Gandhi felt that truth was God, and a truly religious person should be truthful in his thoughts, words, and actions. All his actions were guided by the spirit of truth. Sticking to truth was far more important to him than accomplishment of any worldly goal. This often resulted in a confrontation with his followers. However, he never backed down and compromised with truth. He says, "Let hundreds like me perish, but let truth prevail. Let us not reduce the standard of truth even by a hair's breadth, for judging erring of mortals like myself." He firmly believed that truth resides in every human being. The only thing required is to search for it. He regarded himself as an earnest seeker of truth, and in the course of doing that, he sought feedback from his fellow men to know his mistakes and correct them, and even if he erred, he retraced his steps and was saved from any permanent harm. According to him, humility and humble attitude is a prerequisite for the seeker of truth, when he says, "The seeker after truth should be humbler than the dust." One of the most important quotes of Gandhiji is, he said, "Be the change you want to see in the world." Integrity, honesty, and transparency were his anchors that provided him stability in turbulent situations of his life. Gandhi was a great confessor. He says, "Confession of error is like a broom that sweeps away dirt and leaves the surface cleaner than before." He was an open book to himself and to others. That could be seen in his autobiography, wherein he has not held back anything, in spite of the fact that by the time he started writing, he was perceived as Mahatma and was widely accepted as a moral and spiritual leader. He was unmoved by his personal gratifications or the fear that his image as the Mahatma who could do no wrong will be tainted. He was brutally honest. He wrote candidly of his shortcomings, his struggles, his mistakes, and his Himalayan blunders. He did not worry that admitting to such mistakes, errors, and faults would damage his reputation or his image as a spiritual and political leader. Truth is difficult to listen, more difficult to speak, and most difficult to practice. Yet it is the simplest, purest, and clearest, since it is irreducible, irrevocable, and irreversible. Gandhi, whenever intended to launch a campaign, be it in South Africa or India, always announced his intentions to the British through writing to them directly and giving them time to mend their ways. The third vow is non-stealing. Non-stealing does not mean merely not to steal. To keep or take anything which one does not need is also stealing. We are not always aware of our real needs, and most of us improperly multiply our wants and thus unconsciously make thieves of ourselves. One who follows the observance of non-stealing will bring out a progressive reduction of his own wants. Much of the distressing poverty in this world has arisen out of the breaches of the principle of non-stealing. The fourth vow is celibacy. For Gandhiji, practicing celibacy was important by a person who wanted to achieve high goals in whichever field he may be. According to him, indulgences led to the outlet of vital physical and spiritual energies. Through celibacy, one can save these energies for constructive use. So, celibacy becomes a catalyst, not an hindrance for the achievement of goals. The fifth vow which Gandhiji took was that of aparigraha, that is, non-possession. Gandhiji says, the less you possess, the less you want, the better you are. And better for what? Not for your enjoyment of this life, but for enjoyment of personal service to your fellow beings, service to which you dedicate yourself, body, soul and mind. As we can see in the picture, this is the picture of his room in Sabarmati ashram. He had very limited wants and his room was a very simple room. He always propagated to live a life of detachment from worldly pleasures because he believed that when one dispossesses oneself of everything one really possesses all the treasures of the world. According to him, evil lies not in possession but in possessiveness. His reading of Sermon on the Mount, Bhagavad Gita and the Light of Asia had a common theme of renunciation. From Gita, he learned that renunciation is a central sun around which devotion, knowledge and the rest revolve like planets. He says Gita teaches that renunciation of fruit in no way means indifference to the result. In regard to every action, one must be aware of the results and capacity required to accomplish that work. Gandhi's 11 vows. 6 is Sharir Shram, that is bread labor. Bread labor means that everyone is expected to perform sufficient body labor in order to entitle him to his living. He explained it further when he says, the economics of bread labor are the living way of life. It means that every man has to labor with his body for his food and clothing. If I can convince the people of the value and necessity of bread labor, there never will be any want of bread and cloth. 7th vow is control of the palate. Gandhi stated that one should be satisfied with food that is necessary for the proper maintenance of one's physical health. Eating beyond that would result in abusing oneself. The diet should be healthy and well balanced. This will lead to healthy body and mind. 8th vow is fearlessness. Gandhiji says, fearlessness does not mean arrogance and aggressiveness. That in itself is a sign of fear. Fearlessness presupposes calmness and peace of mind. For that, it is necessary to have a living faith in God. Gandhi gave a detailed description of what is fearlessness. According to him, fearlessness should connote absence of all kinds of fear. fear of death, fear of bodily injury, fear of hunger, fear of insults, fear of dispossession, fear of ghosts and evil spirits, fear of everyone's anger, etc. Freedom from all these and other such fears constitutes fearlessness. He believed that for the development of truth and non-violence, fearlessness is indispensable. One can progress towards fearlessness by increasing self-confidence in oneself. Gandhi believed that courage and conscience are indispensable to each other. Gandhi knew that untouchability was wrong. To eradicate this problem, he knew he would have to take on the powerful Hindu orthodoxy, but he was courageous enough to fight the system. Once, when he allowed one untouchable family inside the ashram, there was protest from all sides, including his own family members. Even ashram funding was withdrawn, but all this did not waver him and he refused to back down. His popularity, reputation, and even his life was threatened. He refused to go into the temples that were not open to untouchables. The ninth vow is equality of all religions. Gandhi stated, the speciality of any one religion cannot run counter to another, cannot be at variance with universally accepted principles. He believed that religions are interwoven, but no one religion is higher than another. A human being cannot be considered humane unless he respects all the religions equally. His 10th vow was Swadeshi, that is to use locally made goods. Gandhiji says, my definition of Swadeshi is well known. I must not serve my distant neighbors at the expense of the nearest. Swadeshi is that spirit in us which requires us to serve our immediate neighbors before others and to use things produced in our neighborhood in preference to those more remote. Charkha was the symbol of Swadeshi and self-sufficiency for Gandhiji. He said that if everyone spins and weaves their own clothes, then dependence on foreign cloth will be eliminated. For him, using Swadeshi was not only a national economic model against British, but also intra-national model of sustaining the cottage and village industry. His 11th vow was Sparsh Bhavna, that is, removing untouchability. Gandhiji says, I consider untouchability to be a heinous crime against humanity. It is not a sign of self-restraint, but an arrogant assumption of superiority. Untouchability means pollution by the touch of certain persons by reason of their birth in a particular caste or family. Gandhi was strictly against this. A person discriminating against fellow human beings, considering them untouchable, cannot be considered a person with developed human quality. Gandhiji talked about certain social sins which needed to be shunned. These sins are, first, wealth without work. This refers to the practice of getting something for nothing by manipulating markets and assets so that one doesn't need to work or produce value. Second is pleasure without conscience. The main concern of the greedy and selfish has always been, will this please me? Many people want pleasure without conscience or sense of responsibility. One has to learn to give and take, to live selflessly, to be sensitive and to be considerate. The third social sin to be shunned for total human quality development is knowledge without character. Knowledge without strong and principled character is dangerous. Need is to start with values and infuse them in our education system so that there is better balance between the development of character and intellect. Fourth social sin is commerce without morality. The spirit of win-win situation is a special interest of morality, mutual benefit of fairness for all concerned. Commerce without morality will lead to exploitation of the weak. Science without humanity. It is said that science is a good servant but a bad master. So, unless science is used for the betterment of the humankind, the result will be misery. Sixth is religion without sacrifice. Sacrifice serves the needs of other people, the sacrifice of our own pride and prejudice. The great servant leader has that humility, the hallmark of inner religion. Seventh social sin to be shunned is politics without principle. Gandhiji emphasized that a person cannot do right in one department whilst attempting to do wrong in another department. Life is one indivisible whole. If there is a bad social will behind the political will without principle, then that society will have distorted values. So, a philosophy that is based on respect, understanding, appreciation and compassion has to be relevant at all times. Let's now discuss some of the special qualities of Mahatma Gandhi, which are very important for human quality development. First is punctuality. Gandhiji gave a very beautiful analogy for valuing time. He said, "What a fool we shall call that person who, needing 10 pounds, does not take care of the few shillings he regularly gets. Nevertheless, we behave just like him. We regret that we do not get time, and yet we idle away the stray minutes, which put together would make a whole day, just as the stray shillings make a banknote." Gandhi was very particular about time. Even on the last day of his life, when he got late for the prayer meeting at the Birla House, Delhi, he said, "I am late by 10 minutes. I hate being late." Even though he was such a great leader and the nation looked up to him as their Mahatma, he did not let it influence him and make him disrespectful of their time. Gandhi always remained very punctual in his routine work. There was a fixed time for each and everything. Until the last breath of his life, he followed it strictly. The value of punctuality could not be appreciated more than the present times, when the life of humans have become very complex. There is always multitasking to be done, and it seems that the duration of a day has shrunk, as there is so much to be done in a day. In such a scenario, punctuality as a value should be adhered to be more effective. Another special quality of Mahatma Gandhi was tolerance. Salt Satyagraha is an ultimate example of tolerance. Mahatma Gandhi led the Dandi March to produce salt without paying the tax, with growing numbers of Indians joining him along the way. On April 6, 1930, early in the morning, Gandhi marched to the shore where salt lay thick and picked up the contraband salt and held it up in his hands for all to see. He was arrested for this and taken to Yarwada jail in Pune. As we can see in the picture, Gandhiji is going on salt march with Sarojini Naidu and many others. He was arrested just before his planned raid on the Dharsana salt works. a major salt depot. His followers undertook the responsibility. Groups of volunteers advanced towards the gate of the factory and were hit by the police badly. Nobody raised a hand to retaliate, not even to protect oneself. When first batch of volunteers was injured, the next batch proceeded in the same manner and was subjected to the same treatment. The British beat the Indians with batons and rifle butts. The Indians neither cringed nor complained nor retreated. This made England powerless and India invincible. This is how this incident was reported. This is the great example of tolerance. Here, tolerance was shown for the misdeeds of the opponents with a view to make them see reason through adherence to one's values. Tolerance towards the attitudes and beliefs of others goes a long way in the development of an individual's character. Tolerance plays an important role in our life. If we practice this quality in ourselves, then it can help us to live a satisfactory and disciplined life. Tolerance is the virtue which helps one out in every walk of life. Gandhi says, 3/4 of the miseries and the misunderstandings in the world will disappear if we step into the shoes of our adversaries and understand their standpoint. We will then agree with our adversaries and think of them charitably. Another special quality of Mahatma Gandhi is the spirit of service. Gandhiji said, "The best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others." The seeds of urge to serve others were sowed in him in his childhood, which emerged as one of the strong qualities instilled in him. Even when he was a young boy, he loved nursing his sick father. In South Africa, he volunteered to give his service at a local hospital as a helper to the doctor. During the times of Boer and Zulu wars, he helped the wounded, risking his life at the front. He also helped many laborers who were illiterate and indentured without any fees. This value to serve others was so deeply rooted in him that it became a passion for him. And when he returned to India, he was ever ready to take up the cause of poor and to provide service, and was so engrossed that this quality became the central theme of his life. He also said that service to anyone should be done with whole heart. Service can have no meaning unless one takes pleasure in it. Scientifically also it is true, as studies also suggest, that helping others has a healing effect on both the helped and the helper. Nurturance was another special quality of Mahatma Gandhi, which is very important for human quality development. Gandhi had an uncanny insight into the hearts and minds of the people who got associated with him, and everybody had value for him. Gandhi accepted people as they were. He took from a person, a book, a religion, and a situation that which was congenial to him and discarded the rest. He refused to see the bad in people. He nurtured the people by regarding them as though the good in them was all of them. Being able to see the potential in a person and bring out the best in him or her is a mark of a true leader. Special qualities of Mahatma Gandhi. Innovativeness. A person desirous of developing his character, will help to develop an urge to learn and adopt the good points of various traditions. Gandhi was always keen to know everything. New and innovative thoughts of the people could affect him very easily. But it did not mean that he was ready to adopt all these in his life. In spite of that, he was always ready to pick good things from that which really affected his life and experimented with its application, which initially was met with lot of resistance. Because of his innovative ways, Gandhi was many times resisted and even hated by people. Gandhi was of the opinion that first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, then you win. This means that if one has conviction, one should with persistence keep on moving on the righteous path. Ultimately, people will be convinced of that. His major convictions such as truth, non-violence and satyagraha were inspired by Buddhism, Jainism and Hinduism. In times of crisis, Gandhi turned to Bhagavad Gita. It provided him with perfect knowledge of truth and selfless action. He also read the New Testament, in particular the Sermon on the Mount, which appealed to him because of its activist philosophy. Rabindranath Tagore's correspondence with Gandhi also brought about a change in the latter's thoughts. Gandhi was very much influenced by Bible also. He was also inspired by Ruskin's book Unto His Last. This book influenced Gandhi's concept of soul force as a substitute for physical force and changed him as a person. Gandhi read Tolstoy's The Kingdom of God is Within You in 1894 and turned his attention to the concept of non-violence. At the age of 25, it made a deep impression on him. He was moved by what he read, but he didn't only read it, but went ahead to create an environment where he could apply what he had read and learned. It was his quality of being inquisitive that kept Gandhi productive and creative until the end of his life. As he grew older, he became even more creative. His major achievement in political and social fields came when he was in his 60s and later. The epic Dandi March came when he was 61. The fasting in Calcutta, where he also walked 178 miles to stop communal riots, happened when he was 77. So students, let's now summarize what we have understood in this module. Gandhi stated that strength does not come from physical capacity, it comes from indomitable will. An important lesson for today's youth. Scholars from all around the world have acknowledged relevance of Gandhian philosophy today. Ricardo Young, president of Brazil Ethos Institute, said, "India knows, and Gandhi's words are more contemporary than ever before. Quality of life is not equal to number of things you can consume." This is what exactly Gandhi maintained and practiced a century before. There is need to work on Gandhian lines as India has to balance development with social inclusion. The success which Gandhi achieved in mobilizing the entire nation rested on his ability to understand the needs, the aspirations, the strengths and weaknesses of his followers, his organizing abilities, empathizing with the masses, reading the minds of opponents, analyzing situations, preparing for innovative campaigns meticulously, etc. These are the qualities and skills highly required by today's youth. Business organizations are influencing lifestyles, values, and behaviors of individuals in society. Consumerism has become a dominant force, leading to various skills which have undeniable influence on economy, politics, as well as society. So, Gandhian thought has to be appreciated and effectively applied for human quality development of present and future generations. Thank you.